Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we are going to begin the first in a series of videos where I finally get a chance to build a low-cost Intel PC, and we're going to build it on this thing, and this will be the focus of our first video here. This is called the DIYPC Alpha-DB6 Black Acrylic ATX Bench Case, and what we're going to do is actually build the entire computer on top of this thing so I can easily swap out components, because what we're going to experience here in the process is first building a run-of-the-mill i3 Intel PC that'll cost around $300 or so to kind of put it in line with that AMD computer we built a little while back. And then we'll be adding GPUs to it, and PNY sent over a bunch of different GPUs for us to look at, so we'll be incrementally increasing its performance as this video series commences. And I wanted just an easier way to get at that stuff, and that is what this will let us do. Now, I purchased this with my own funds, so all the opinions you're about to hear are my own. Nobody is paying for this review, and no one is reviewing this content before it is posted. Now, I bought this for $42, give or take, on Newegg.com. It isn't much, actually. It is exactly what they described it to be, which is just an acrylic surface here where you can mount your motherboard. They have all the holes on it in the right spot for the motherboard when we are ready to add that. And what I'll be doing is cutting this video once I'm done giving you an overview of this, and then we'll be assembling this on my extras channel. So if you want to see the entire build take place in its entirety, you can go over to Lon.TV/extras to see it. Otherwise, when I'm done with the overview, I'm going to cut, and then you will be seeing this thing built when I get everything finished up. So this actually is more than I expected it to be. I just thought it was just going to be some acrylic thing that you would put a motherboard on, but they actually have some electronics on it, or at least some connectors on it. So what you got here is a string of USB connections. So this is, I believe, USB 3.0 right here. There's a USB 2.0 slot over there, and you have some analog audio inputs. It's got the little plugs for the motherboard here. And then on this side is the on-off switch, and what they have done is kind of built them into the acrylic case here. So you can just push down this little button to turn on your computer, and this one will reset it. We'll be mounting the power supply in here. The motherboard will go here, and I'm going to put an SSD down here. And actually, there are two of these little drive bays that you can configure. I'm going to leave this one open just because I have nothing to put in there. And it does look a little bit wobbly, but what I will be doing is mounting in an SSD, and I will be putting in this bracket that should hopefully get everything in place and keep it a little more stable. There's also some legs on here that I already screwed onto the bottom. Now, there is a paper on here that I missed initially. I thought that was just the way this thing was supposed to look, but there's a paper that you can peel off, and when you do, it'll go from this brown color to the black color that you see here. And there's a bunch of stuff that you get in the box with this also. Like I said, this was a lot more than I anticipated it being, including all the screws and all the other stuff you might need. So let me just take out a few of the things here. So you get this nice box of screws, and these are some of the motherboard mounting screws and some of the other pieces of hardware you might need as you assemble it. Really nice little case that it came with as well, so they really package things up nicely. You get this gauzy thing. I don't know what this is for, but we've got that in there. This is the extra hard drive bay, so if I were to add that, I would just basically slide those pieces into that center point there to add those things in. And then there's some other stuff like a bunch of card separators here. So what I'm going to be doing is screwing these little metal things into each of these holes to simulate what it might be like to have a separator on a motherboard. So when you put in those cards and screw them down on a motherboard, we don't have that on here, obviously, so these little spacers will go in between there. What I'm going to do now is get the motherboard out and begin the actual build. And if you want to watch that build, go over to Lon.TV/extras. Otherwise, you're going to see in just a second or two this motherboard installed on here and almost ready to boot up. So let's get to it. All right, so everything is built now, and you can check out my video where I put everything together if you want to really look at how badly I put things together. There is a video on Newegg's YouTube channel where they also build this, and they do a better job of it than I did. So I would suggest going there if you really want to see exactly how this thing comes together, because I am not very good at this mechanical kind of work. So any event, I did want to point out a couple of things on this and some errata from the introduction to this video. The first thing is that I ended up disconnecting using this connector that I showed you because I had it in the wrong spot. Where it's supposed to go is right here underneath the left drive bay. So I'm not even going to use it because I have all the connectors I need on the back of the motherboard, so that is going to be just fine for my purposes. And then underneath here, I've got the SATA drive mounted, so we're good to go there. It really did add a lot more stability to the drive bay here. I did add a leg, which was extra in the box over here. So I guess if you have another set of drives installed on here, you don't need this leg. But I think I might just put a dummy optical drive or something in here with the other two drive connectors just to give it more stability, because the power supply is really heavy, and I think it's probably a little bit of overkill for this build, but this was the only power supply I had in the box. But it's definitely weighting things down a little bit. I'm getting a bit of a bend to it, and I don't really want it to warp over time, so I might just swap that out just to give it a little bit more stability than I currently have. Now, the big thing to note on this, and this is something you should think about if you're buying this test bench here, is you want to get an angled power connector, because most power supplies come with one that's not angled. It just kind of points downward. And on this power supply, that meant that if I had that straight power cord on the end of it here, the entire weight of this apparatus would be resting on the power cord, which is not something you want to do. So I grabbed this off of my television from upstairs. I'm sure my wife will be yelling at me later about it, but you definitely want an angled connector, because if you don't have it, this is going to be resting on that, and that is very, very bad news. So don't do that. Just buy that angled connector when you get the rest of the kit here, and you'll be good to go. The funny thing is they kind of overlooked that on the Newegg video. They just didn't talk about it, but you definitely need that angled connector there to make everything fit on there. Other than that, I'm really happy with how everything mounted up on here. We got a lot of nice airflow on the motherboard. Things attach very easily, obviously, because it's all open air here. I got the power switch connected, and hopefully when I boot this up in a minute, we'll be good to go. And one other embarrassing piece of errata involves the white fabric that I pointed out at the beginning of the video. It turns out it's a pair of gloves that you can use to work on your computer. They're kind of small, but they do stretch slightly. What's embarrassing about this is that my family business was making and selling gloves like this for most of my life, and I didn't recognize them in a tiny little bag. We usually sold them in much larger bags with larger quantities, but that's what you get in that little pouch there. So that will do it for the DIYPC Alpha-DB6 black acrylic ATX case. What I'm going to be doing now is getting a monitor hooked up, and we will finish off the build video on the extras channel, so hopefully it doesn't go poof when it gets turned on. I'm going to do some configuration on that video, and then I will boot this thing up and do some benchmarks and do a more concise review here on the main channel that should be coming up in the next day or two. This is Lon.TV, and thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by my Patreon supporters. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/Patreon to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/S.